morning, everyone. My name is Ortega. I'm the head of office of Kvinna in Liberia, and I would like to welcome you all to this panel discussion, COVID-19 Implications for Stability and Women-Led Responses to the Crisis report from Monrovia, Liberia. This event is going to be structured as a panel discussion. The participants will present, and you will be able to send me questions. You just need to click on question and answer symbol at the bottom. You will not be able to see what you're writing, and other participants won't be able to see it, but I will. And I will identify and summarize some common themes and common questions, then I will bring them back to the floor for the panelists to respond. So we have a short time, but we're gonna make the best out of it. Welcome again, we're very excited about today. And with this, I will leave to Ambassador Ingrid Wetterqvist to set the discussion, set the frame for the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome to this session. I've been ambassador to Liberia since May 2017, and it's been a privilege to be in this country and to meet all these strong women. Let me start off by just situating Liberia. I guess you all know this is a small coastal nation in West Africa. It has about 5 million inhabitants. About a quarter or maybe a third of them live in Monrovia. It's a very green country, and it's endowed with natural resources and young people. But COVID also hit Liberia. The first case appeared in mid-March. The state of emergency was declared by the government mid-April, and the current official numbers are 229 people who are sick, with 21 deaths. The COVID response is spearheaded by women in Liberia: the national coordinator, the health minister, the agriculture minister, and the gender minister. Liberia suffered a devastating civil conflict, more or less intense, during the period 1989 to 2003. It didn't stop until the women had enough and took charge and ended the conflict, and peace accords were settled and negotiated in Accra in 2003. For 15 years, UNMIL, the UN peace-building presence, was in Liberia, finally closing the mission in March 2018. In 2005, the first post-conflict elections were held, and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected president, the first elected woman president in Africa. She was re-elected in 2011, and then in 2017, or rather in January 2018, when her constitutional period ended, she handed over the reins without violence in a fully democratic transition to the current president, His Excellency George Weah. He has presented himself as a feminist in chief. I think that is an important recognition of the work and the importance and the challenges and the contributions of women in Liberia. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, together with another Liberian, Lima Bove, who incidentally was part of the opening panel to this conference last Monday, and a third lady, Tawakkol Kurman from Yemen, the three of them were awarded Nobel's Peace Prize in 2011 for their contributions to peace. But they were not alone, and the work is carried on. The women are strong in Liberia, they are visible, they are reliable, and they are hardworking. They carry the country on their backs. Yet changing gender roles remain a challenging task. Sweden has been present in Liberia since 2005 and opened its embassy in 2010. Our presence is focused around development cooperation, and the feminist foreign policy runs as a theme through all our work. Yet, ending conflict is one thing, building sustainable peace is another thing. Liberia remains one of the 10 poorest countries in the world, with challenging social and economic realities for its very young population. More than half of the population is younger than 24 years of age. Violence against women is common. Women also bear the brunt of the burden to raise and feed children. Whenever someone is poor, the woman or the girl is poorer. Addressing this requires hard work at many levels of society, and the efforts need to jack into one another. It is therefore a particular pleasure to be able to kick off this panel, which we hope can give you 3 different perspectives of how the women in Liberia engage with peace building, development of their country, the ending of violence, and all this facing the additional challenge of the coronavirus. First out will be Mrs. Nelly Cooper, who is a women's rights leader living and working in the slum township of West Point, Liberia, where she has advocated for the rights of women, girls, and boys for almost 20 years. Nelly Cooper helped establish the West Point Women for Health and Development organization, which works with the community in preventing gender-based violence and in providing psychosocial, economic, legal, and medical support to GBV survivors. She will be followed by Ms. Naomi Tulay-Solanke, who is a Liberian feminist, a human rights activist, a humanitarian, and the founder executive director of Community Health Initiative, a national non-governmental organization providing health care and social services to women and children in underserved and hard to reach communities in Liberia. Finally, on the panel, you will meet Minister Williametta Saydee-Tarr, Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection of the Republic of Liberia. She is an experienced social policy, communications, business and non-profit professional with over 17 years of senior managerial experience. With a background in restorative justice and advocacy, Minister Tarr is an ardent advocate for women's, children's and youth rights. This panel represents 3 perspectives on the realities on the ground and also, in some sense, 3 generations. Let me recognize the co-organizers. This panel is co-organized between KTK, Kvinna till Kvinna, and the Swedish Embassy in Monrovia. KTK's Secretary General, Ms. Petra Tötterman Andorff, will close the session with her personal takeaways. We thank CPRI and the organizers for giving us the space to share some experiences from Liberia. And now let me hand back to KTK's representative in Liberia, Piso Ortega, to moderate the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I would actually like to invite Nelly Cooper, Ms. Nelly Cooper, to present, to start opening this panel discussion.
Thank you, Maripat. I'm Nelly Cooper from West Point Women for Health and Development Organization. You already get my profile. I'm going to give you a little gist on what is going on, what is unfolding in West Point. When COVID-19 hit West Point, there was fear, people were confused, and then some people had mixed feeling. They also had denials, and people were looking at the way that the COVID-19 was unfolding because it came very quickly in Liberia. Children were out of school, and now the economy right away started crumbling, and then people started looking at the way that it is going. And people started reacting to the news of the COVID-19. It was a little bit different from the Ebola situation, because Ebola, you could touch someone and you could carry someone to the hospital and whatever. But the COVID-19 is something that you cannot be able to touch or reach closer to the person. So it was something that was very, very bad. So we said, okay, what can we do? Now we already have poor sanitation problem. We already have infrastructure, and then poor infrastructure, the population is dense, and we have problem already in West Point, where you have no safe drinking water. We have to get our water from water handlers. And when we look at the situation as West Pointer, we talk to government, but yet and still, what we received were demolition of tables. The market sellers, tables were demolished, and then those who were selling in wheelbarrows, they didn't have no means, they drove them from the street. So this caused a serious problem. And then the effect that we received was people, most of women lose their livelihood. When they lose their livelihood, it becomes a problem. Some hungry people have to come in the street. When they come in the street, they are beaten by the police. And all of these things are problems. Some of the problems that we look at is that there's no food for their families. Some became beggars. They are not beggars, they are begging family members, they are begging friends and other people. And then the children staying at home, they are not going to school. All of these are problems too. Even right now, as we speak, there was a little boy of 15 years that got drowned. And then when police came in to do their own work according to them, they were carrying out brutality. And a little boy was born in the process when a female police kicked a pot of hot water. And this became a problem. The child loses his life. So all of these things causes stress for the people. Parents are being stressed because their children are going in the ocean to swim. And at the same time, most of them cannot be able to control those children. The children are in the street and so forth. So these are problems. And then these problems are causing tension in the community. If it is not being handled, it will become a serious problem. Even though the government has a right, but then the right of the citizen also starts from where the government right ends. Now we are looking at sexual gender-based violence. That also includes another problem within West Point. West Point has a serious violence issue. We have domestic violence, we have sexual violence going on in West Point. Right now, as we speak, you will find community members fighting because they are staying at home, they are not going to work. Most of them are not going to work. So they're fighting one another. And you can also find that neighbors are all fighting between themselves. And then parents are also beating on their children because the children are not going to school. Apart from that, the sexual gender-based violence issue, where men are abusing women in the community. Most of the time, these cases have been taken to the police station. The police station is also overwhelmed right now. So they bring the cases to us, they carry them to the court, and they bring it to us. So it's like something that is so confusing. But then we have some cases at West Point Women's Center, where you find that men are putting women outside because they don't have food to give to the women. They don't have any means to be able to support their families, so they are throwing them out. We had 3 cases where men throw their women out of the house because they cannot afford, they can be able to afford to support them. And then we have another case recently where a woman who had a C-section twice, she went to ask her husband for only a bag of water. And that bag of water she asked for, she got beaten for that bag of water. She was kicked, and then she was taken to JFK by the West Point women. So these are things we are talking about. There are so many things going on. Then another thing is the rape issue. People have been having attempted rape, and other people have been raping. They are raping little children as young as 13 years, 12 years, are being raped because the children are not going to school. And then we have the issue of teenage pregnancy. Right now, as we speak, 5 girls have come to our office with teenage pregnancy. They are going to school. And we know most of the schools, we don't want to name them. But they are pregnant. So these are issues that are causing, these are things that are causing issues for the community because they stay at home, it's causing problems. So COVID-19 has created some issue for the people of West Point because we have to reach out, we have to go out to fend for ourselves, to fend for our own food. We have to reach other family members out of the community to be able to help do some work and then come back and be able to earn something from them or friends. But it's not going on because we cannot go anywhere. The curfew is a problem for us. 3 o'clock, we have to, before 3, people are already coming home. So if you stay in the street, you will be beaten by police or security forces. So these are problems that we are facing. Okay, women remain vulnerable And then at the same time, there's no help. Those who lose their businesses, the business are collapsed. People are indebted to the bank, as well as there is increased stress due to this situation. Some women went to the bank. They took loan from the bank, and the bank is asking for the money. They cannot be able to pay. Some women lose their businesses. They were selling perishable goods, and those goods have perished. So after this COVID situation, women will face a whole lot of problems because many women will not be able to be able to cater to their family because they lost their businesses. So these are serious problems that is giving problems to the community. So what I can say here is that my own recommendation is that authorities need to consider the situation to implement an appropriate response that will protect the rights of the population and also enhance social cohesion. And then at the same time, they need to put in measures to lift the curfew from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. in order to allow the population fend for themselves, in as much as authorities are delaying the distribution of essential materials or food to the vulnerable population. Government is not giving food. We have been listening for them to send food to our community. We are not getting no food there. And West Point is a vulnerable community that need help. Already we have our own problem. We are living in a close condition. And then when you come, when you look, you will see that the security forces will come driving people from the street. People have to go and sell, but no way. So it's a serious problem for the community. So government need to come in and help with distribution of food, because if they don't do so, some people are begging. To my house, people come there every day, people asking me for food, they want money, they want this, they want that, they want soap. You know, just imagine, these are things that are really happening. So it's a problem for the community, and certain things need to be done by the government to see to it that the community of West Point or other communities, I'm talking about West Point, or other communities are being, catered to. West Point need to be catered to because they know about West Point problem. We had a history of violence. We've been marginalized by many people, even including the government. And because we are densely populated, so people overlook us. But we want to say thank you to the Swedish people who have been very, very much kind to West Point. With the support you are giving us, it's helping the community of West Point. So I want to say thank you, and I want to say thank you to the organizer of this program for allowing us the opportunity to be able to come and show our problem, to be able to express our problem to the wider population or the wider people across the globe, so that they can understand what is really going on. That is just a little bit of why you are. I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, Ambassador Wetterqvist, for your kind for your kindness, allowing me to come here and be able to participate. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kvinna to Kvinna. Thank you, Sopri Forum. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nelly. Thank you so much for giving us such a vivid picture of what's going on in West Point and the increased challenges for livelihoods, for violence against women, teenage pregnancy, etc. I think that everyone can agree that it's a very intense picture of what's going on. And I would like to now give the floor to Naomi Tulay-Solanke.
Thank you, Maripas. Again, I'm Naomi Tulay-Solanke. I am the Executive Director of Community Healthcare Initiative. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Feminist Humanitarian Network. Just to pick back on what Nelly spoke on, I will start on with sexual reproductive health and rights. COVID-19. So COVID-19 is something that resonates with us in Liberia as it relates to our previous experience, say with the Ebola outbreak. So a couple of years ago, 2014, 2015, Liberia and other African countries was hit with the Ebola virus, and immediately women's organization went into response mode. And that respond mode is a natural inclination for us women, because whenever people are sick, whenever things happen, we are first responders. We consider this as part of our care because of our genetic makeup. So now with COVID being new, and not just new to Liberia or West Africa, COVID is a global pandemic, and it's something that is yet to be, the treatment is yet to be found. There are a lot of challenges. There are more strains coming out the entire world. At some point came to a standstill. And imagine Liberia, a country emerging for 14 years of civil conflict, a country that was just hit 4 years or 5 years ago with a health pandemic, Ebola. Now just trying to recover in the recovery process of our health crisis that we face. Now we are along with the world facing COVID-19. So Liberia is not different when it comes to sexual access to sexual reproductive health and rights. The challenges that women face is huge. So imagine us being in the pandemic and women cannot have access to their commodity. So now we hear Nelly talking about increase in teenage pregnancy. Besides teenage pregnancy, there will be increase in unwanted pregnancy, because a lot of the women cannot access where their commodity are. And because of the stigmatization that is associated with family planning, most women secretly go out to take the treatment, whether it's the depot, whether it's the tablet, or whether they are using condom. It's something in some community is frowned on, so women find their way to go to this center to find their commodity. Now with the partial lockdown, with the state of emergency, most of these women gonna get pregnant. Talking about young girls that haven't even understood their own body, going to get pregnant. And a sticky issue that is still yet to be discussed in Liberia is access to safe abortion. So abortion is still criminalized in Liberia. So there'll be a lot of people who are going to get pregnant, a lot of women and girls are going to get pregnant, and they cannot access safe abortion. There's going to be a lot of illegal and unsafe abortion going on, and life going to be at stake. And women and girls going to lose their lives. Yes. It's been happening. Then with the case of a lockdown, is the likelihood for an increase. And it's about time that we as first responder ensure that when we are going into these communities, not just food and non-food items, we should go beyond women's specific needs. There are things that are specific to only women as it relates to like sexual reproductive health and rights. We should include them into our packages, and not just including it and just handing it over to them. We should be able to explain the importance to them, because most of the community that we are entering as first responders, the 8 or the 2 kids that we are giving, some of these women are the first time receiving it, like reusable pad. Some women will be the first time even seeing reusable pad. But we are saying that we are including it into our package, and we are just going to deliver it. And if we say that unsafe abortion, access to family planning already an issue, and we're talking that we're in a pandemic, imagine the domestic violence part to it, that most of the women are stuck home currently. In Liberia, domestic violence is on an increase. So imagine that most of the women are stuck home with their abuser, and they have no other option. At least doing before COVID, they could go to the market. Some of them used to go to school or go and do their unskilled labor work, and they will have time to break away from the abuser. Now, by 3 p.m., they are stuck in that space with the abuser. And there are so many things happening, because usually with all the restriction in mobilization, you could have people going into the community asking, now we are restricted the social distancing, and the social distancing varies from country to country. It is impossible for Liberia to practice social distancing. Look at a place like West Point. It's impossible. So we need to leave our privileges when we're talking about social distancing and imagine what other localized mechanisms that we can use to ensure that everybody is safe. Because what is happening in the Western world might not be able to translate and resonate with us in developing world like Liberia. That is one. So there are a few things I would like to share, few innovative or few suggestions that I would like to share that we all, people that are on the call or donors, NGOs, government, should be able to pick back on. Because the issue of COVID have overwhelmed our government. Our government wasn't even ready for a normal situation. We were just like, we had an economy that was crumbling in Liberia. Then with COVID, with the demand that is within the community, government do not have the capacity. We are saying that to say that we are seeing it in other of the sectors that we work in. There's a need for donors, there's a need for NGOs to come in. For me, I recommend that you work with the local structure where the issue happened, where the people are responding, build that capacity right there so that they can help to beef up government response. Why they are struggling and coming in, at least the community is trying to be stabilized. That could help in reducing the amount of people that are going to get affected for COVID or the economic and social issues that are going to come as it relates to COVID pandemic. Access to reproductive health and rights is a human rights issue, and we feel that women should have a safe space where they can be able to have conversation about issues affecting themselves. So maybe we need to start to invest in sexual reproductive health and rights on wheels. Take a bus, take a car, go into hard-to-reach community, have a designated point, schedule days that you can meet there and be able, that women and girls create the awareness in the community can come and just have access to the commodity to go back. So that can help them to be safe, because we want to rebuild back better. And the only way we can build back better is that we need to ensure that our community has that resilience, and that resilience is that we are not excluding them out of the process. They are leading as local actors. The next thing that I will want to stress on again is the access to menstrual health hygiene. We are in May. Globally, May is celebrated as International Menstruation Month. We are giving our packages to people who are in need, but we are forgetting to know that whenever we give sanitary napkins to women, not all women, especially in Liberia, know how to use reusable pads. I say it because I was just in the field, and I was so shocked when the woman came up with so many disposable pads, and she's like, my daughter, in a Liberian way, I don't know how to use this. She didn't know how to use it. Yes, it was given to her as a care package, but wasn't explained to her how to properly use it. So we need to explain our care and our kits that we are giving all to vulnerable community and vulnerable people. If these kids need to be impactful, people need to understand how to use it. And menstrual hygiene management need to be included into our response. Like, let us be cognizant that when women are positive of COVID and taken to the quarantine center, if it's for 14 days, within 14 days, there's a possibility that a woman gonna see her period within that time. Yeah, the next thing is that most of the women are talking now with the abuser. What are we doing to ensure that the voices are amplified? Are we creating like a social distancing, interactive space where women can have the conversation and feel that, yes, they are part of the conversation? Are we giving a light where they can show a light that, yes, our abuse? Are we looking out to signs and symptoms to know that whether children and women are abused in the community? We need to include that in our responses so that we can be able to pick on these cases. The issue of access to maternal, newborn, and child health is already a problem in Liberia. With 1,072 maternal deaths for every 100,000 births in Liberia, it puts Liberia to one of the countries that had the highest in maternal and newborn in maternal death. And the records also show that the mortality rate of newborn within the first 28 days of life, that 37 of every 1,000 live births, 37 of them die. So imagine in the midst of COVID, how friendly are we making our quarantine center as it relates to incorporating women who are expecting and they have COVID? Or how are we securing our maternity center to ensure that when women give birth, they are safe and they are not going to get infected? We saw during Ebola, there were people who went to a treatment center and they got infected by going to the treatment center. So psychosocial support. Psychosocial support should be continuing process during this whole COVID-19. We should include psychosocial support. The community are not ready for what is happening. We need to make the community aware. We need to make them ready. We need to make them prepared that when somebody leaves the community, an infected person, that when they come in, they should be able to accept them. We saw Ebola, how people were rejected, people were named and shamed. We need to work on our psychosocial support with the community, the infected family, the survivor, and you name it. Even the health worker need to be able to understand that this is something new and we are all having a strange thing. So with no further ado, I want to tell everybody, thank you for this panel, KTK and the Swedish Embassy for inviting us. And I want everybody to remember that women are first responders. And if we want to build back better after COVID-19, we should invest in local response. And we should also invest in local women response. They are at the community. The issues that affect the community affect them. So COVID response, or women responders should be, we should have a feminist face, and it should have more local actors at the community level responding. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. I think you did great in highlighting the need definitely for a response with feminist lens, a localized, innovative, out-of-the-box response that actually addresses effectively women's needs, both in terms of commodities, as you said, but also of knowledge. So thank you so much. I would like to now give the floor to Honorable Minister Piso Saydee-Tarr to present. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to the previous two speakers, strong women there. And I just want to say that I'm very happy to be here. And I hope my screen is showing. I'm trying to share a screen for presentation. Are you seeing the screen? Okay,
yes.
Great. So I'll be going over a little bit of the roles of the ministry, within the COVID-19 preparedness and response, some of the challenges faced by government, and also, like what we learned from Ebola and ways of bringing, ways forward for bringing our citizens on board and all of that. So the role of the ministry itself, as you know, first of all, I'm the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection. I definitely want to thank the Swedish Embassy, Kvinna, for organizing this forum under the theme COVID-19 implications for stability and women-led responses to the crisis, especially concentrating on Liberia. The role of the ministry, I just want to refer, give a little background. The ministry is a member of the Special Presidential Advisory Committee on COVID-19, which is called SPACO, and that is headed by the president, as well as on the executive committee on the response, the National Response Committee for COVID-19, also established by the president. Our own first case came in March, on the 16th of March, actually. We recorded our first COVID case. Considering all of these effects, with the spread of the virus, we know that it could cause a serious dent on our already struggling economy, as already been said, and of course, specifically our vulnerable community. So our president himself, quickly rallied our already fragile health system and began to direct resources towards the response. The ambassador already said, I'm honored to inform you that as evidence of his own confidence in the leadership ability of women, he appointed women to play key leadership roles in the COVID-19 response to Liberia. Along with the Minister of Health and the Director General of the GSA, who's the National Response Coordinator, Minister of Health heading the entire response. We also currently have on the Executive Committee of the COVID response, the Chief of Protocol and Office of the President, Kvinna as the National Compliance Officer, the Agriculture Minister as the co-chair on the Food and Nutrition Committee, and I also had two major pillars, the psychosocial pillar and the women, girls, and children pillar specifically. Our role as a ministry itself is really, about just making sure that in these times, we're not going to be seeing a situation where as women are forgetting, the issues about women are forgotten. So we wanted to be sure that we are influencing, making sure that response is gender responsive, gender sensitive, and that we're doing everything we can to do the prevention side of sexual and gender-based violence, but also be able to respond in that instance. The challenges right now that we face, it's just really being sure that we're able to do the things that we have to do. We apart from the pillars that we had, we also are represented on several other pillars. The National Food Steering Committee, we're on there. We're represented on the race communication and community engagement pillars, and also we are coordinating National Call Center. And National Call Center is really, apart from calling in COVID-19 cases, is really to be able to mitigate sexual and gender-based issues, so that we're able to go in and make sure people are getting access to the referral pathway, and they're really paying attention to what is needed in the communities, what is needed by survivors, and making sure also that perpetrators are being brought to justice. Most of the challenges that we face right now, of course, when Ebola outbreak came in Liberia, of course, our health system was created by an enemy that it had never encountered. And because it was a very poor system, so we saw the amount of deaths that came in, plus the disability from the community. And though, our president and the government, has shown strong resolve towards rebuilding and restructuring the health sector through the construction of, for example, this new hospital that now has become our treatment unit, but, we already are still showing signs that, we really need to really beef up in order to be able to fight pandemics such as these. With the World Health Organization itself recording 16,469 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the least developed countries as of April of this year, our own health system could easily become overwhelmed, and we know that we have to really pay attention to really to the prevention of the disease more than ever. Also, we want to be able to take the lessons learned from Ebola to be sure that the awareness, is really, really all through the countryside, so people understand that COVID-19 is real. And to that end, the Presidential Advisory Committee has been really working to coordinate response efforts so that we're responding as one government in combating the disease. We've been able to, through the city government of Liberia, dispatch over 6,000 active case finders across the various communities. The community-based organization and civil society organizations are engaged. We, on our Women, Girls, and Children committee, have made sure that we've engaged the CSOs so that the communities are the ones. Because from our own hours here myself, if during the Ebola, we know that all of the work had to come from bottom up and not from top down. And we have to work directly with the communities and have the community actors, the community leaders, be the ones to go in to help mitigate the situation, help have the conversations. And so that is the same model that we're using right now. And these groupings include women groups that have been trained by the ministry itself to assist in prevention and response efforts at community levels. In addition, we have our international organizations such as, you all on the call that have joined the fight through the donation of face masks, hand washing buckets, chlorine, food, and other assorted materials to different communities. Generally, we are mitigating our challenges by being more involved with the communities. We believe that we can, from the lesson learned from Ebola, we can better coordinate and champion, the fight against COVID-19 in Liberia. Outside of that, we want to talk a little bit about, how, once there's a lack of trust in people, we know that they will refuse to take the messages, and we will never succeed in breaking the line of transmission of the virus. So that is why it's important for the communities themselves to take charge, and that is why we've been trying to work through the community structures. All of the pillars, apart from our own pillars, are working through the community structure. It's just making sure that under the incident management system, that we're working with all of our NGOs, of our community-based organizations through the county health systems, all of that, our traditional structure. As a result, we've been able to really work on bringing everybody together so that we can look at this as one response and not people being, scattered, so that we have a clear, concise, and accountable communication to put into the community to be able to help combat this pandemic right now. So at this juncture, I just want to talk a little bit about, the fact that though COVID-19 has taken away the lives of at least 20 of our precious citizens, including health workers, and posed health threats to families whose members got affected, the coming of the virus has also presented us an opportunity for government stakeholders and other national policymakers to understand the extent to which other societal ills are perilously undermining the national growth. With over half of our own rural population engaged in farming, for example, the closure of the borders, with all of our neighboring countries, and the current lockdown for all of our 15 political subdivisions also has led to a reduction in the production and sales of goods, and this affects mostly women. Furthermore, the construction of much needed farm-to-market roads that was steadily ongoing before the virus attack obviously has automatically stopped because there was, everybody had to stop and stay safe and all of that. So then that is also affecting women in agriculture. So this and the transportation of medical aid and food supplies to hard-to-reach areas is now going to be a serious challenge, which we're trying to mitigate, but especially now that we have the rainy season coming up. The emergence of all these challenges is surely going to lead to the rising figures of malnutrition cases and growth in our overall poverty rate. Female poverty is also going to experience growth as women who are mostly involved with agriculture activities are the breadwinners of most families, especially residing in the rural part of the country. We want to be able to also talk about the urban communities. women who are engaged in cross-border trade, operation of restaurants and beauty salons. They are all right now going through a tough time because of the lockdown, and the nature of the virus has just really compelled governments to say that people have to stay home for a certain period of time so that we're able to find a way to get the sick out and then and get rid of the virus. Violence against women, as discussed earlier, is something that we've been really checking on. We're trying to right now look at the numbers that came in between the months of March and April to be able to compare it on the average. But we know that this is happening because every day we're mitigating cases. By the end of this month, we'll be able to know if the cases actually jumped up higher than on the average of the past 6 months. But we know that we are seeing this, that even with the lockdown, like previously being said, there's a lot of cases where we have, the perpetrators, because now they're locked in with those who they're preying on. They're acting more, and we want to be sure that we're mitigating that. So that's why we also have a working team with the Women, Girls, and Children pillar to ensure that we are making sure that people are getting access to information. People know that they can call in and report cases, and we're trying to be sure we're beefing up the strength of the safe homes for the purpose of that. So finally, in view of all of these national issues, we need to consider making key improvements in not only the provision of basic social services, but also for our judiciary and our court system. And this is something that has been brought to our attention even more right now, is highlighted. Over recent months, we've been able to put into force or sign into law key instruments, that spells out clear punitive measures for perpetrators of domestic violence, and we need to put that into effect. Matters of our economic, the revival of our economy, we need to begin the process of drawing up a clear national recovery plan, which is already ongoing. And the plan is basically focused on short-term intervention, which will restart the economy and stimulate long-term growth. I just want to say thank you again to all of our partners on here. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Kvinna, and the Stockholm Forum for hosting us. And I know that together we can end this pandemic. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. It was really interesting to hear what the government is doing and seeing women at the forefront and playing key leadership roles in this response. I've been receiving a few questions in the question and answer section, and I would like to pick a few of the common themes, but you are still welcome to send a few other questions while I speak. Some of the questions that they've been raised have already been answered in one way or the other. There are several participants interested on hearing, have you been able to actually record an increased number of cases of violence against women? How has this been in comparison with times prior to COVID-19? Also, what are the current strategies to mitigate this risk of increased violence against women? How is the public aware of reporting mechanisms, safe homes, referral pathways, etc.? So I think that the Minister has touched a little bit on this. Participants also have some very specific questions with relating, they're very interested in hearing more about the mobile health clinic that Naomi has mentioned. Some questions about the state of emergency and how that has impacted the loans that in theory should have been frozen. But Nelly mentioned that for some women, they are still repaying the loans. Not sure if that's for the banks or informal loaners. And also they're asking about what's the role of that you see for businesses, private sector, also in the response and mitigation of the social and economic impact of COVID-19. So I've dropped a few themes, gender-based violence, the state of emergency measures, the private sector role, and I would be happy to pass the ball to the floor. If any volunteers to touch on these themes.
For the bank issue, the loan that women took, some banks. Hello?
Sorry, yes. Yeah.
Okay, some banks are not going by the rules of what they are telling them to do by allowing lenders to be, sometimes, some banks don't allow. So some people took loans from other sources like the informal sector, like those who loan, they have loan organizations. And people need their money. So most of the people cannot be able to pay. Most of the women cannot pay now. So it becomes a problem. Some people are being dragged to the court as we speak right now. So these are issues that we are facing in the community. People come to us to go and talk with the loaner who loan them the amount that they have been doing business with. So we have to go and do some mediation with them. As for the bank, well, some of those people who took loans from the bank, there's a fellow and a lady close by who took a loan, and then the bank came and locked their doors. So these are issues. But some of us, like for our organization, we reach out to those loaners, to informal sectors that loan people money for business. We go and talk to them, and sometimes we try to tell them to extend the time. And we were successful in doing 2 of those things for 2 women who came to us for assistance. So these are issues in the community that is very, very much sticky and need for handling.
Thank you, Nelly.
Okay, can I come in?
Of course.
Hello?
Please go ahead, yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, so like Nelly said, and that is the truth, but the government on its own, the Central Bank of Liberia did ask commercial banks to exercise flexibility with customers. They were told to restructure the customer loans, but of course there's, a lot of times people do the loans and then it's attached to their accounts, and so they automatically take the money out. So we are still, mitigating these issues, but it's something from the government level. We did ask them. Of course, commercial banks are not owned by the government, so we can ask them to do it, but most times, they will go ahead and decide how they want to do it depending on the nature of the loan that they have with the individual. And then just to, talk a little bit about the question asked about business. We're looking at because the government has already proposed a stimulus package to empower businesses, and the role that we see for businesses in minimizing, responding to mitigating the social and economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis is that they can contribute to an improved economic environment through mitigating unemployment and social aid through direct and indirect links to better the lives and livelihood of our people. But businesses are also allowed to, once they are allowed to resume operations, right now it's just a few based on need, but it must also be able to beef up their production, sustain the level of employment, like I said, and government and the banks must increase access to financial capital to ensure businesses are, are well capitalized to improve production. So at the end of the day, right now the government itself is ready, pulling through, like I said, it's on like we're operating under one response. So even as the government is planning the economic recovery plan, we're bringing in the businesses, business owners that all will come in to have the conversation together so that we'll have the best package put forward.
Thank you so much. I would like to bring also the conversation back to gender-based violence, and I'm also getting a question saying the Domestic Violence Act is relatively new. It was approved only last year, and we've suddenly faced ourselves with COVID-19 and how difficult it is to create awareness and sensitize communities on the law during this unique time. So I'd like to ask, what are the strategies that you are implementing? How are you adopting your interventions to continue reaching out and involving local communities? So perhaps I can invite Naomi to talk a little bit about that, how you are adapting.
Okay, thank you for that question. One of the things that we are doing is that in as much that we are responding to COVID, whenever we go into the community, we use that opportunity to also create awareness on pre-existing issues that were in the community. So we know the issue of the DV bill was just passed, it's new, a lot of people doesn't understand it. So in as much that we are creating awareness on how to prevent yourself from COVID, what to do when you suspect that someone has COVID into the community, encouraging women to have social distancing and still maintain the women support groups. We are trying to put in forms because we know that the first thing the perpetrator do to aid survivor or victim is to get away their phone, because they know that's the first means that you're going to communicate. So we are trying to see how we can get few of the women leaders to have communication so that whenever there is a violence and the survivor don't have, or the victim don't have access to communication, they can then go to the head of the women group who will also help them. So the issue of SGBV, the issue of creating awareness on the new bill that was passed, don't leave our work. we also use that opportunity whenever we go into the community to reinforce that in the midst of pandemic, in the midst of COVID, in the midst that we are asking everybody to stay home, there are issues that are still going to happen and there are laws. So what to do? We also share the hotline. The government has given a hotline 4455, and other CSOs have already created their own lines as it relates to domestic violence. We carry the communication into those communities whenever we are there, because the issue require a holistic approach from all angles. So whenever you are in the community to do anything about COVID, use that opportunity to also talk about structural issues or issues that existed in the community, so women can know that in the midst of COVID, the law still remain the law.
And in fact, somebody's asking, in the midst of COVID, things like court hearings for gender-based violence, domestic violence cases, how are these being held? How are still the police responding to these cases?
Yes, please.
So what happened, like recently, we saw there was a live streaming of a 17-year-old girl that was raped, and we saw how community policing was very active. The community persuaded the perpetrator until he was arrested. So the issue of the court still remain open. The court is still hearing cases. So the issue is to ensure that the perpetrator is out of the community, so that can serve as a deterrent to who be rapists. So we are seeing that the community policing is working, but now the sticky issue still remain with the law, that when this perpetrator is being arrested, we know that there's a lot of pre-trial detainees into the central precinct, especially with COVID. We now need to work along with the court of the government to ensure that in as much that we are in COVID, we are doing social distancing, that most of the cases should be held so that the precinct can be empty and that survivors can have closure to their own healing as part of the healing process, that they know that justice was served, but the courts are still open.
Thank you so much for the clarification. I think, unfortunately, we're already running out of time. We're right on a schedule. So I'm just going to give the floor to Petra, who is the Kvinna Secretary General, and she will be just giving some closing remarks. And once again, thank you all for being here today, and to you, the panelists, for accepting this invitation. It's been a pleasure, it's been a luxury to have you.
Okay, so I hope you can hear me now. It's a constant struggle to be muted and then not. Okay, so first of all, I want to say thank you. A big thank you to everyone speaking on the panel. You've taken time out in the middle of the on-the-ground COVID-19 response daily activities that you're all in all the time to share your experience and knowledge with us. So today we have had the privilege to hear a live account on the implications of COVID-19 and state of emergency in Liberia in general, but in specific from Nelly in the West Point slum in Monrovia. And we have heard from women human rights defenders the importance of a localized and feminist response to the crisis. And we have seen the holistic approach and the central role that the Minister of Gender is playing in this response in Liberia. And I think that all three of the panelists, you all touched upon a myriad of topics from a little bit of different angles. But you all presented some of the main challenges that Liberia is facing right now, both during and the midst of this crisis, but you also talked about some of what will happen after the crisis is over. And you talked about the poverty in the local communities. You talked about women not being able to feed their families. You talked about the difficulties for women and men and everyone in general to keep up their businesses so that they can earn an income. And you talked about the long-lasting effects this will have. You also talked a lot about the increase in violence against women and how the lockdowns is affecting this in a very negative way. You talked about women's and girls' lack of sexual and reproductive both services and rise, the increase of teenage pregnancies that you're already seeing, and the lack of access to safe abortion. And we also heard from the minister a number of actions that are planned and that is already implemented by the government. So I think it's fair to say that it's clear that the protection of women and girls is a life-saving intervention, especially in times of emergencies. And the Kvinna till Kvinna Foundation will continue to monitor the development of the crisis in Liberia, and we reaffirm our commitments to partners like West Point Women and Community Healthcare Initiative and the Minister of Gender in these times. Also as part of joint efforts of the INGO cluster on ending violence against women and girls in Liberia. Several of you have mentioned that Liberia is already a challenging context, and the ambassador actually started the seminar there. And even during normal circumstances, it is a hard context to work in. However, listening to today's presenters, I think that we all can see hope. I think that we can see future in the extraordinary women who are at the forefront of this response. And it was mentioned by you, Naomi, talking about women as first responders. The resilience and the commitment of Liberian women's rights activists over the years has been and remains truly inspiring. And I'm very thankful and happy that we were able to be part of this panel together with the Swedish Embassy in Monrovia and also the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. So a big thank you to all of you who participated in the panel and today's event, but also to all of you who have checked in and listened and asked questions in the chat. And thank you very much, Marie-Paz, for an excellent moderation.
Excellent. And just to let everyone know that this has been recorded, and once the organizers upload this video, we will be sharing the link and it will be posted on the website, so anybody can access and can watch this afterwards, and you can share with other people. Thank you so much and have an excellent rest of the day.